Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar re-recording. We did a webinar, me and my colleague Manisha Timothy, about navigating the teenage years to guiding for the parents, for the teenagers through these years, and bullying prevention. I'll introduce to you, first of all, Manisha, who is a very successful life coach, and she has been named the top coaches by Entrepreneurs Herald. Manisha, would you like to say a few words about yourself first, please?
Thank you, Amy, for the introduction. Yeah, I am Manisha Timothy, and I'm based out of Dubai. I run my own coaching company known as Dream Catalyst Life Coaching. And recently, I was featured as top 20 coaches to look out for by Entrepreneurs Herald. Also, I've been speaking in a couple of conferences across the world. And I would also like to introduce Amy today. Amy Sinton is based out of Warsaw, Poland. And she also was featured as top coaches to look out for by NYC Journal. Amy has also been a very successful coach, wherein she's been attending conferences across the globe where she had been invited to speak. And she runs her own YouTube channel and other social media things as well. And personally, she's a great friend, and I know she's a great coach as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Manisha. It means a lot to me. So I hope that everybody that did not join the initial webinar will be able to watch this and get information on how to deal with a teenager, if you have one right now, or if your child is smaller, how to deal with it in the future. So first of all, Manisha will be speaking during the first part of the presentation, and then I will continue in the second part in terms of the bullying. So I'm giving the mic to Manisha.
Thank you, Amy. So I will go through the overview. Our webinar is actually divided into two parts. The first part is about, understanding teenage years. So in that, which I would be presenting, we would be talking about teenage behavior. We would be talking about the common issues they face, how to have a effective communication, how to support their emotional well-being, how to set the boundaries and make them independent, and also how to improve as parents, which would be a very important part of the presentation today. And in the second part, Amy would be presenting the topic bullying, wherein she would be introducing bullying, understanding bullying, signs your teenagers being bullied, how to prevent it, and what are the 7 R's of bullying prevention, which is a very, very interesting thing I personally find. And then also, how would you help your teenager manage bullying? So, moving ahead, teenage years. So, what exactly are teenage years? So, generally, kids from the age of 13 to 19 are called teenagers. This is the time when their puberty has hit them, and they have suddenly they notice a lot of bodily changes physically as well as emotionally. For girls, the puberty hits at around 8 and it's there till 12. For boys, it's a year later, generally around 9 till 13. And we're going to talk more about it in detail. But first of all, I think me and Amy want to do a small demo of how a general conversation with a teenager and his parent happens. To just give you a short glimpse of, what most of the parents go through every day. So I would be acting as a teenager mother today, and Amy would be acting as my daughter, and she has just come back from school, and I'm trying to have a conversation. So, hi, Amy.
Hi.
How was school?
It was okay. Whatever.
What did you do today?
Like stuff.
Stuff. What do you mean stuff? What, I mean, the whole day? What did you do?
Oh my goodness, like I don't remember. It was so much work. I'm so tired. I just want to relax. It was exhausting. What's for food?
Yeah, the food is there, and I'm going to give you food definitely. But could you just keep down your phone for a moment and just have a conversation with me, which I'm trying to have with you?
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to talk to you, Amy?
I am so tired after school. Like, you have no idea. It was so much stuff to listen to, and I just want to relax.
Oh yeah, I think you've mentioned that twice. I understand that, but what I'm asking is, why is it always so difficult to have a normal communication with you? A normal conversation is a task to do, and I really don't appreciate it.
Well, you have no idea. Like, it's really difficult.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Amy. And so this was a short glimpse, and I am sure everyone who's watching this video presentation today would relate to it, whoever has a teenager, because they are the same across the world. And it doesn't change whether, we are born in a certain country or a certain ethnicity. Teenage years are mostly same for all of them. So let's move on to our topic, which is understanding teenage behavior. So let's move on first to the teenage behavior. Like, what is the teenage behavior? What are the different things that come in when they grow to be teenagers? As we all know that it is a very challenging task for parents, and also you need to understand that as you go into this phase of teenagers, a lot of physical and emotional changes which are happening. So physically their body is changing, which was not happening before. uh, they start growing, they start having different physical features which they were not having before, and a lot of hormones change since they have just hit their puberty, which also uh, kind of adds on to their emotions and their behavior, how they're behaving. And so the most important thing for parents to recognize at this point is that this is all normal, and everyone goes through it, all the teenagers, even we went through when we were teenagers. And you also need to understand that at this time, they tend to become more independent and assertive. That is because they want to establish their identity. They're very confused people right now. They don't know who they are, what they want. So, just trying to find their identity, that is what plays on with their mood swings and their impulsive behavior. Like suddenly they'll get very angry, suddenly they'll get very rebellious. So all those emotional changes are happening because of certain reasons, like finding their identity or the hormonal changes which they are having. And also at this time, parents need to understand that they are no longer restricted to your emotional restricted to you emotionally for their emotional needs. At this time they start exploring new relationships with friends, or they also get into the romantic relationships wherein they start having crushes on people and they want to get into a relationship with others. So all that is happening. So the best thing to do right now is to provide them with a safe and supportive environment, and also let them express themselves. Obviously you need to have clear boundaries and expectations with that. Moving on to the next slide is, what what are the 10 most common issues teenagers face today. Now, most of the time, I hear parents saying that, oh, we also went through teenage, we never did that, we never had these things, we never troubled our parents. But you need to understand the issues teenagers face today are very different from what we faced, because there's a generational gap between us and our children. So some of the things, the main issues which I've just put down here, which they face, are first is the negative body image. report which says that about 22% of teenagers, they face obesity at this age. And when you get that, it's not a very good thing to have. And suddenly, their body's changing, and it has a very negative impact on their behavior as well as their emotional outlook as well. And a lot of eating disorders happen at this time. A study suggests that 95% of eating disorders happen between the age of 12 to 25, and teenagers obviously are included in that. Then longing to belong to supportive and accepting communities beyond their family. So they they are growing, they are seeing new groups, they are seeing new people, they want to be they want to get supported by the most popular friend group in the school. They want to fit into that group, they want to fit into a lot of different things, whether making friends or being part of some community or some group which is at school or at a community where you're living. Those all things are happening. Also, at this age, they become a little brand conscious, and not having certain brands which they want to have at this age can play up to their emotional well-being as well. Then time management stress. At this age, there's a lot of pressure from school. They have to submit the projects on time. They have to be very good in sports activities. Then there are a lot of assessments happening in school, plus the social pressure wherein, they are partying, hanging out. All these lead to a lot of stress for them at this age. Then social parental pressure. Parents have an over expectation, from children in regards to studies, that, they should excel in their studies. Also in extracurricular activities, that they should be doing really well in extracurricular activities. Plus the peer pressure comes in, wherein they want to be accepted by everyone, and in short, they are pulled in a lot of different directions, and that leads to a social parental pressure. Then mental and physical health issue. On an average, a teenager requires 9 hours of sleep, but a study says that most of the teenagers get only 7 hours of sleep, and which leads to a lot of physical issues when they are not getting enough sleep. And we talk about mental health issues. So a lot of times teenagers are get into depression, anxiety, panic attacks, all those things which we think are restricted only to adults, but they start happening at this age, and that creates another pressure on their minds. And the best thing to do if you feel your teenager has a mental uh, issue like anxiety or depression is to seek professional help. Then there are lack of good mentors, role models, and heroes. So we all know that this generation is all about social media, the influencers, all of that. And most of the time the influencers which they have in their life do not have a very positive effect. So some of them I know are school dropouts, but they glorify that thing as if it's the coolest thing to be a school dropout, and they get influenced by those people. And even media, sometimes they glorify rich spoiled brats, so that also is a factor wherein they do not have really good mentors at this age. Then temptation to unhealthy patterns like drugs and alcohol. Although as parents we always think our child or our teenager is not inclined to these things, but 33% of high school students have been reported to try either one of these things. So that is another temptation which is there these days. Then exposure to on-screen violence and unhealthy social media. So again, social media has a lot of positive as well as a lot of negative effect on them. Then there are a lot of violent games which are coming in these days, and when they play them, that plays off on their mind and they become more aggressive. Bullying online and off, I'm not going to dig deep into it as we are going to do this in the next part of our presentation. Then risky sexual activity and behavior. Uh, it is important to talk to your kids about sex at this age, I would say, although the sex education is given by most of the schools, but still, it is a fairly new concept for them. And it would be better if you sit down with them and talk about it rather than they going and exploring and then, getting caught into something which you would not like. Then the next thing is, so those were some of the issues which the teenagers are facing. Now, how do we help our teenagers with those challenges which they are facing, and what can we do to help them? The first thing is to effective communication with teenagers. Now, communication is key in parenting teenagers. You need to have a very open and honest communication, and in no way you should stop them from having that communication. Also, I would say that communication should be a two-way communication. It's not that just you are giving them instructions, you are making rules, and you're not listening back. You need to be a very, very active listener at this age and show empathy to them and try not to be very judgmental on each and everything they tell you or share with you. Then you should also respect their privacy. While giving them the privacy, you should also keep an eye on the activities, but in some areas they need that privacy. And as I said before, they are trying to find their identity, they're trying to be independent, so it is very important for them to have this privacy at this age, so please give it to them. Then obviously all these things, when you do, you build trust with them, and having this positive relationship with them will help you navigate through the teenage years. The next is supporting teenagers emotional well-being. As we discussed before, that they go through a range of emotions at this age. Now you should be aware of this emotional well-being, and you need to be supportive of that. Please show empathy to them, validate their feelings. So if they come and tell you something, oh, I'm not feeling up to it today, or I'm feeling very anxious today. So, you know, kind of validate that thing, try to talk to them about it, and also help them cope with those skills. If, for example, your teenager has a anger issue and, he shows a lot of anger. So try to understand how that emotion comes, try to understand the triggers that lead to that anger, and help your teenager to form some coping skills to manage that anger. If he's getting angry, tell him to just count till 10 and just relax for a minute, so that it goes down, and then get into the trigger part of it, that why is it coming and why he feels so angry. So just talk about him, and also let him or her develop coping skills for that. Then also, if you need to know the verbal and non-verbal things in your signs in your teenager, if the teenager is not talking to you or is overly emotional on smallest of things, he starts crying, then understand that there's something wrong and try to seek professional help in that. I'm saying that because the WHO reports that 1 in 7 between the age of 10 to 19 years experience mental disorders like anxiety, depression, panic attacks. So it is good to ask for seekers professional help if you feel that your teenager is going through something like that. And also providing the safe and supportive environment for your teenagers will help them, develop resilience and emotional intelligence as they grow into adults. Then setting boundaries and consequences. So obviously they want to be independent, and they may test your patience for that as they try to push your limits in that. But it is important for you to set clear and consistent boundaries, and also explain to them why you have put those boundaries. You need to be very consistent with your boundaries. with the boundaries or with the rules you've made, so that they understand that you're serious about those things and you're not just put in place just like that. Also also when they try to break those rules or boundaries you've set, try to enforce consequences. And when I say consequences, it should not look like punishment. It should just be focused on promoting positive behavior with them and teaching them responsibility. Then encouraging responsibility and independence. So as teenagers become more independent, they also learn to take responsibility. So in this, I would like to say that try to give them some responsibility. So it can be a small thing like buying groceries from supermarket, or cooking a meal for the whole family once a week or once in fortnight. With that, they would love that responsibility, and do not try to interfere when they do it. Let them do that on their own. And even if they make mistakes from doing something, let them make that, because they learn from those mistakes. And when you do that, you give them opportunities to learn and grow, and that can help them develop confidence and self-reliance, which will help them in their later years. Then maintaining a positive relationship with teenagers. So how do you do that? So it is obviously challenging, but I would also say that these years are also very rewarding years, because you see your child growing from infant to childhood to teenager, and you can see them growing into these beautiful adults which you always wanted them to be. So as a parent, it is a very rewarding thing. Then uh, develop this positive relationship wherein you show if love and affection. You try to spend quality time with them, and also celebrate their achievements. And achievements should not be like the really big ones, big achievements. They can be like small achievements, like just making their bed and they have been making it for 1 week at a stretch. So celebrate that thing, that they're becoming responsible, because they want that validation from you and they really like it. Also, parents should be willing to apologize and admit their mistakes. Now, this is very important, because if you want your teenager to do that, you need to do that first. You are the role models. If you don't admit your mistakes, if you don't owe up to your mistakes, the children are not going to do that. So be open in that thing. And so by modeling this positive behavior and values, parents can help teenagers to develop into a sense of self and a healthy outlook on life. Now, how we can improve as parents? There are a lot of times, wherein I hear parents saying that how can we improve our teenagers? How can we make them be independent? How can we make them, listen to us and to be at their best behavior? But you need to understand that you need to grow as parents as well. What you were 5 years back, the same parenting won't work right now. You have to keep learning and improving as parents. So some of the things which you can do to improve are, first is role reversal. So what happens right from their births? We guide most of their activities, whether it is, deciding which school to go or what to do on weekend, whether it's going to a McDonald's or going for a drive or going to a adventure park. So we are taking those decisions. But now, as you see, they're becoming more independent. So you try to do the role reversal. Just see what they like to do and try to do those activities with them. If they love playing a video game, play that with them for some time. If they like going swimming, go with them. Even if you're not really into it, but just try to do that activity, because they would feel supported in that thing. Then overuse of parenting books. There are a lot of parenting books, and people learn and sometimes generalize that, okay, so it is written in this book and I should do this. And when you do that, your teenager doesn't respond to that, and then you are confused, why is it happening? Because books are there for a general view of a teenager. It is not individualistic. And I would say, as parents, you are the best person who knows what your child needs or what are his requirements. So don't rely too much on those parenting books. Just use your uh, knowledge of your child in that, and you would do best in that. Then, next important point is that do not raise them the way you were raised. As I told earlier, it is very important to know that we are a different generation from theirs. So you need to adapt to their environment now, understand the differences which has come up now, and work accordingly. Then another point is that do not hide the world realities from them. So a lot of times parents want to keep them in a secure environment wherein they don't tell them what's happening. If there's a war or there's a murder in town or if there's a robbery, they try to protect them from those things. But what usually happens is they are very inquisitive. If you don't talk to them, don't tell them, they are going to find it in their own way, and their way might not be a very good way to find out things. So let them know about these things, expose them to those realities, which will help them in their future as well. Then the age between 13 to 19 years old is a very essential time for parents to stay involved. As teenagers are evolving into adulthood, they might be too proud to say that they don't need you, but they really need you. So be there for them. Then as a parent, it's important to set up your family core values and tell them, that is, communicate with them that those are your family values and you would like them to follow them. But also keep in mind that if you are going through some generational traumas, so when I say generational traumas, it is the transference of traumatic experience or stresses from one generation to next. One of the many types of trauma, it can lead to direct experience, witnessing violence, or living in an environment where violence was a constant threat. For example, people who've been raised in war zone countries or raised in a place where they have faced a lot of racism, we kind of, try to put it on in our next generation, and it goes on and on. So if you feel that you are you have suffered from generational trauma, it's good to seek a professional help in that and overcome that rather than passing it on to your children. So that is all we had today, and some of the ways where you can improve your relationship with teenagers, and also how you can improve yourself as a parent. In conclusion, I would say that yes, it is not easy to raise a teenager, but when managed in the right way, it can help build the perfect building on the strong foundation you have laid in your child's formative years. Teenagers is probably as difficult for the child. They are no longer satisfied with our naive and often indifferent answers. They need facts to support the answers. So give them those facts, own up to that. And remember, everything about your child was new since they were born. You have navigated in the last 13 years, and you will have to keep on doing for the next many years to stay strong in that partnership. So I would just say good luck with that. So, and now we are going to move on to our next part of presentation, which would be done by Amy, and the topic is bullying.
Thank you, Manisha, very much for all of those really great insights. So I'll continue now with the topic of bullying, which is a topic that unfortunately many teenagers deal with either as the victim or as the perpetrator. And it's very difficult for most parents to notice when this is going on. So next slide, please, Manisha. So here's an introduction to bullying. As I've said, parenting a teenager can be a very challenging task. During this time, they're trying to figure out, as Manisha had said, who they are, what their identity is, because they're neither an adult yet, nor are they a child anymore. So they're trying to figure out what the rules in life are, who they truly are as a human being, what their values are, what they want to do in life, what their purpose is. And this can be very troublesome. In this time, they may also encounter bullies from either side as the victim or as a perpetrator. And it is very important for teenagers to understand the meaning of these words, as well as what bullying is, how to recognize it, and how to get out of such situations. So it's also very important for them to be assertive human beings, to know how to say no, to stay away from the people that might be causing damage to others. If they notice something going on that is wrong, to be responsible for themselves, but also, if possible, then they could tell either a teacher or an authority figure to support somebody else if they're in a difficult situation. And as parents, it is our responsibility to support teenagers and help them during this difficult time and give them the tools necessary to manage the bullying effectively. Next slide, please. Understanding bullying. Bullying is a form of aggressive behavior that is intentional and is often repeated and involves an imbalance of power in many of the cases. Even if bullying happens just once, it still is valid and it's still bullying. It can take many forms, including physical, verbal, and social bullying, such as, in the case of physical bullying, hitting, kicking, pushing, and in terms of verbal, for example, name calling, teasing, or taunting. Social bullying involves excluding somebody from a group and spreading gossip or rumors about them. It can make teenagers feel very bad. They can feel very alone, very hurt, like nobody understands them. They can get very emotional about it and start acting out in certain instances. And it is very important for parents to understand what the different types of bullying are so that they can recognize when their teenager is being bullied and to take the appropriate action necessary. 1 out of every 5, so that's 20.2% of students report being bullied from the National Center for Educational Statistics survey, but that is also not including those that were not reported. So the percentage is probably much higher than that. Next slide, please. Signs that your teenager is being bullied. So there are several signs that your teenager may be bullied, and this can include changes of behavior, like if a teenager starts being very quiet, stops doing things that they were routinely doing before, stops partaking in certain hobbies or wanting to go to extracurricular lessons, if they become anxious, very sad, depressed, and if they start having bruises, cuts, or any kind of physical injuries. They may also experience changes in their approach to learning, so in their academic performance, or they may lose, as I said, interest in many of the activities that they used to enjoy. If you do notice any of these signs, it is very important to talk with your teenager, give them a sense of a safe space in which they can open up and truly do be mindful and validate their feelings. Don't cause bigger problems for them than they're already in. So if you do ensure your teenager that, okay, you can really open up and tell me what the issue is, don't go and put the teenager back in that scenario where they were, where the perpetrator can know that you've been told and others have been told, so that the teenager doesn't get hurt more. If you're going to have the teenager open up, you need to make sure that when they do go back to that environment, if they do go back, then it will already be much safer for them. I will mention some of the tools and things that you can do to prevent the bullying, so that you know how to respond to such a situation. They may be very hesitant to talk about it, so it is very important to have them being comfortable opening up. Next slide, please. So how to prevent bullying, because that's the ideal situation in which there is a prevention of bullying, then it doesn't occur, less harm done. So how do we do so? So first of all, teaching the teenager respectful and appropriate behavior towards others, whether it's in school, parents, authority figures, and modeling the right behaviors at home. It's important to set certain boundaries and be clear about what is expected from them. Showing them respectful, kind, and empathetic behavior will set them up, in most cases, for better behavior further on, because oftentimes teenagers will just copy behaviors that they have seen, especially from home. It does not mean that you need to be a perfect parent, because nobody is a perfect human being, and parenting is difficult, but it is important to try to do your best and be mindful that your children will be seeing what you're doing, and it's important just to role model positive behaviors for them and to be supportive. It's also important to stay involved in your teenager's life and monitor their social media use. But as it is important to monitor, it's also important to give them the chance for them to be autonomous individuals that have their own privacy and to respect that. So by monitoring their behavior, their non-verbal gestures and behaviors also of any kind of changes. And also if something just comes up as a red flag to you, then you'll know hopefully more about what's going on and if you do need to go more into what they're doing. So setting an age limit and time limit for them is super important. They need to know what age they can use social media by, what age they can have a phone by, a laptop, an iPad, anything like that. They need to know. They need to know what time limits are good for them, and to be mindful about not crossing those times. But also being flexible sometimes as a parent is important also. So by restricting teenagers from screen time altogether, it might sometimes cause a reverse effect. So sometimes it's important just to give them this special time in which they can use screens, and it is also some kind of a socializing for those teenagers too, because they have a chance to talk with their peers, other students from school, etc., and with their friends. But making sure that they're also using the right games or being on the right platforms or apps is important too. Cyberbullying, unfortunately, has become an increasingly common issue amongst teenagers. So what is cyberbullying? Cyberbullying is electronic communication bullying, and it can occur on almost any electronic platform. It can be on the internet, it can be on the phone, it can be on a computer, in games, in text messages. It can be posting or sharing photos of somebody with others that are making fun of them or that they don't want to have posted about them clearly. And among students ages 12 to 18 who were reported being bullied at school, 15% were being bullied online or by text, also by the National Center for Educational Statistics. So that is quite a large percentage. And there's so much more going on than that, probably. But as teenagers really do want their privacy, and they are pretty good at hiding things at this age already, that's why the result is like that. But it's probably much higher, and it's important to be mindful and careful as a parent. And next slide, please. So here are the 7 R's of bullying prevention. Number 1, create rules that are going to define what's appropriate and respectful behavior. First of all, teenagers are going to feel much safer when they have rules. Human beings as a general feel much safer when they know the rules of what's right, what's wrong, how they could possibly get hurt, how to avoid it. So creating these types of rules and boundaries will make them feel like they know what to do. Um, and then they'll also be more aware of if they are crossing it, that they're doing something wrong. Recognize. So find out how to determine what behavior is bullying in terms of the parent and for the teenager also. Bullying can really have very dangerous consequences, so it's important to know how to recognize it. If they either witness or partake in bullying, it's important for there to be some kind of a procedure that's set for the teenagers and people around to know how to report an incident of bullying and who to report it to. For example, if a child is at school, they can report it to their teachers and then tell their parents at home. Sometimes it's important to involve the police. If there's cyberbullying, and somebody really doesn't want to stop, then sometimes it's important also to take a screenshot or some kind of an evidence and take it, for example, to the phone operator or to higher authorities also. Respond. It's important for everybody to be informed about how they should behave and respond when they hear of bullying behavior. A great way to respond is just to ignore it because oftentimes bullies will try to feed off the attention. They usually have a lot of issues themselves, and it's important for people to know, especially teenagers and children, that if they are being bullied, most likely it's an issue of the bully, and actually has nothing to do with the person that's being bullied in terms of um, how they are as a person, if they're a good person or not. And teenagers will often take things personally and think there's something wrong with them. It is important for them to know how to recognize the types of people that bully them, potentially, or could bully them, and to try to stay away from those types of people and to build themselves up, to be more confident, to be more assertive, to not need to have the validation from others. Um, in unhealthy ways, such as just giving in to a bully. Um, and so here we go into the next point, refuse. It's very important for teenagers to know how to say no when they're being provoked or aggravated by somebody else. By saying no, they are going to lessen the chances of being bullied, and it's important to know how to say no in such a way that it doesn't escalate and so that they don't give into it. Next slide, please. So the next point is replacement of behaviors. In terms of the bully themselves, because sometimes our child can be a victim, but sometimes our child can be a perpetrator, and it's important to be mindful and open as a parent to seeing what the reality of the situation is. And if a teenager is a bully, it's very important to teach the appropriate behavior, to unteach wrong behaviors, and to name things, to call them out in a way where it's appropriate and where they really understand and change. So another thing to replace is how the strategies, like the coping strategies, the mechanisms of certain people are in terms of managing their emotions, how to self-regulate their emotions in a healthy way, and to have somebody to talk openly with about this. This is very, very important. When teenagers feel that they have support in someone, it's going to be a world of a difference for them. Like they're not alone in this. And to have a parent who is open to listen without being judgmental, which is very, very important, is very important. So teenagers are feeling very vulnerable in the first place. And if they're being bullied, then they're going to be even more vulnerable. So it's important to give the teenager a sense of comfort that you're there as like a strong pillar as the parent, and to just have them open up in front of you. Recovering for the victim after being treated badly by the bully. So, psychological support for the victim may be necessary, and sometimes the victim will not want to open up before their parents. It's great if they can open up before their parents, but sometimes they'll also not open up completely. They can leave certain facts out, and it can be damaging in the consequence, to their mental well-being, to the way that they go through life onwards. So it may be very important to seek the support of a therapist, psychologist, or coach. Um, Depending on what happened, it really depends on what happened. Um, and in certain cases, if there's an immense depression, also, there may be even more need for support. It may be difficult to tell that something's wrong at first, or for a child to open up. So, if they do have a professional speak with them, maybe they might get many more important facts out, and it may be a road for recovery for them. And next slide, please. How to help your teenager manage bullying. So, there are several things that parents can do to help their teenager manage bullying. First of all, it's very important to listen to the teenager and, as I said, validate their feelings. Because if a teenager is being bullied, or if they come to you in a situation where they are not even being bullied and their feelings are invalidated, brushed under the rug, not taken seriously, that's going to be really detrimental to their self-confidence, and their self-esteem is just going to drop. And then they're going to be more prone to being bullied, which is not good. So it's important to validate their feelings, to listen up to what's going on, and to have conversations on a daily basis. They don't need to be super long conversations sometimes, but just to know what's going on with the teenager, and for them to have a place in you to go to speak about what's important, what's going on in terms of the good things in their life, and what's going on in terms of any challenges, struggles, or any difficulties. And let them know that you do believe in them and that you are there to support them. Build up their self-confidence on a daily basis, not just if a crisis comes and if difficulties come. Tell them about their strengths. Um, Try to support them in any kind of weaknesses that they have. Try to teach them also certain coping strategies. And if necessary, you can try to have them seek support from friends or from a life coach or a therapist or psychologist, etc. It's important to work with your teenager's school to address the bullying. It's important to tell the parents of the bully what's going on, so that they can take action in speaking with their child, with their teenager. It's important to tell the teachers, administrators, to make sure that there will be action taken. And hopefully they'll notify the school psychologist also, but it's good to do so yourself, and to try to develop a safety plan for the child. Finally, it is important to monitor your teenager's mental health and seek professional help if needed. Um, and again, that's on a regular basis. It's important for them to get enough sleep, eat the right things, to be mindful of how they speak about themselves, about others, about what they watch during screen time, what kind of behaviors they're watching, whether it's in the private time at home or if it's out and about with friends or at school. Next slide, please. So, in conclusion, parenting a teenager is never easy, but you can manage bullying in the teenagers much better if you do use these tools that were mentioned, and hopefully you'll be able to recognize and respond much better, and if necessary, to react in a positive manner and to support the process of healing, of speaking with them about what has gone on so that they can recover and offer the necessary support. It's obviously best to prevent it, and so it's very, very important to speak with the teenager at home about what bullying is and how to prevent it and how for them not to become a bully. Explaining that hurting others is not nice, it's painful, it hurts, and changing the perspective for them to understand that they would also not want to be in such a scenario, and to tell them, would you like to be in such a scenario? And just giving them a good positive behavior to look at home, so that they can copy that also. Remember that as a parent, you are not alone. There are resources available to help you and your teenager, including counselors, support groups, and anti-bullying organizations. And if any of you have any further questions, if there's anything that you wish to address or ask, please feel free to contact Manisha, Timothy, or me. On the next slide, please, if you can show, we have contact details if any of you would need, and you're also welcome to book a session. Manisha, thank you very much for sharing all the information that you did, and I hope that this will really support parents out there and children in having more positive experiences as teenagers and as the parents. Is there
Yeah,
anything you wish to add?
likewise, Amy. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving such good information on
Thank you.
bullying. So I think one question which generally pops up in most of the parents' minds, like that even after they've done everything, what you
Mhm.
just mentioned in your slides for bullying, and if still their child is getting bullied, so what should they do?
Okay, in a situation where they really have done everything, because some people will say that they've done everything and miss out the key parts, um, then you may need to consider taking different type of action. I'm not saying that it is a good idea to remove the child from the school or not, or any type of environment that they're in, but it may be something to consider.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree with you that sometimes we think we've done all the things, but it's not. Also, understand that in bullying, the victim and the perpetrator. So
Mhm.
both are, kind of equally responsible because sometimes the victim keeps going back to the person bullying him because that person might be the most popular person in the school and he
Mhm.
still wants to be his friend. So there are some things that parents miss out, and I think it's good to have a professional help. First of all, go to a coach and have your child have those coaching
That's
sessions
true.
because he might open up in those sessions which things he's not telling his parents. And yes, and then obviously in the end it's your call as a parent what you
Mhm.
want to do.
Yeah, I can mention a situation that happened to me personally as a parent, where my son was in school where he was being bullied, and I had notified the parent of the child. There was action taken there. The parent did have conversation with the child. I did notify the school,
Hmm.
and there was a school psychologist that had taken lessons with all of the group, and then the child that was bullying also had some uh, therapy sessions with the parent outside of school. But I did hear from other parents that this was happening to their children also. So it was really something that was an issue for the bully
Hmm.
themselves. So I had a conversation with my son and I told him, I am not for attacking others or hurting others. but really it is important to be able to defend yourself. So I said, if need be, you can hit the child back or something, but I said, be very mindful and careful. You don't want to kill the other child. You don't want to hurt the other child in a really bad way, but just let them know that they cannot mess with you and just to back off. Um, and I remember that my son said, "But mom, I don't want to go to the director's office." And I said, "Listen, if you do go there, just blame it on me. Just say mom said to give back, and it will be fine," because I was really worried as a parent that nothing bad would happen to my child, even though everybody was informed and there was supposed to be much more care in what was going on at the school. Um, and I do remember that my son came home and he said that that child was trying to put his hands on his neck to choke him. So I said, okay, this is not okay. He was being scared. So I did end up pulling my son out of that school and changing his school. And I'm very happy about what I did, and I do not regret it. Um, Also, some facts about this. My son was taking self-defense classes in karate. And he was physically bigger, so I knew that if really need be, probably he would be okay because that child would probably not do anything bad. But I did see that my son did not want to attack anybody. He didn't want to hurt anybody because he has a really amazing heart and nature, and he doesn't want to hurt others. And he wasn't really willing to accept at that time to defend himself if necessary. I think times have changed, and he's getting bigger, and he really understands that sometimes you do need to take care and defend yourself. But I was not going to risk it, and I just pulled my son out of that school, and I'm very glad that I did so. But it is very important what you're saying, Manisha, also, because as an example of what I did when I was a teenager, is I was being bullied and I kept wanting to get acceptance from others, and I kept going back to the
Mhm.
perpetrator, which was a big mistake. Had I really not cared, had I had self-confidence, the self-esteem necessary just to really not care at all about that other group of people that evidently probably were going through things themselves, um, and speak to my parents about it, then I would probably have had better and quicker results. But I didn't then, and I had to learn how to deal with that as an adult, and a lot has changed from then. But it is very important to remember that bullying can be very, very dangerous. So it's better to prevent it and to have the teenagers' self esteem at such a level where really they don't care if they're liked or not. Like right now, I'm an adult already, and I don't care as much if others like me as I did back then, and that could have helped me a lot. But I hope that other people can take something from these experiences and that we can channel this with purpose to help others. And so, yeah, if you would like to add anything, Manisha.
No, definitely. And those are some really good insights. And also a good point that you told, there's a difference between self-defense and hitting.
Yes,
So understand that difference. And obviously, if someone is choking you, you need that self to just can't
exactly.
them choke you off. So understand that difference. And yes, as parents, you're the best judge of what is happening. So better. So
Yeah.
take call accordingly. Yeah. But yeah, coaching, I always feel, coaching helps in all those things. It's good to take professional help
Yes,
in
that's true.
certain scenarios. Yeah. And we are there for it. And anyone who needs that kind of support, me and Amy are always there. You can just contact us and have a session booked with us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and most things do start from the mind. So, as Manisha has said, it is important to try to seek the professional help, but also in terms of self-defense, at self-defense classes, at proper self-defense classes where it's taught properly, they will, first of all, put down the rules of when kids or anybody can use this.
Yeah.
So it's clearly differentiated um, what
Yes.
attacking somebody is and what defending yourself is. Um,
Yes.
so it's very important to be mindful of that. Yeah. So
Yes.
thank you so much, and I hope everybody enjoyed this.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks.